Request every once in a while for a buggy tour, show you guys some of the gear that we use on our buggy and how we have it set up so we can be efficient with our grazing. We do multiple daily moves and have quite a bit of fencing infrastructure on the place, so the way we have the buggy set up is, to me, is pretty important to be able to get work done efficiently. This is our fence jumper, we call it, and it's pretty simple. It might look complicated, but it's pretty simple. It goes in the front receiver right here, and it's got two linch pins, one here and one here, and you can have it off in about 10 seconds if you take those two linch pins out. It's connected to the front rack. Front rack's been a work in progress. I think I've got it dialed in about like I want it. Everything on here, we try to make it out of as light a weight material as possible. We've used heavy stuff in the past to try to build it stouter, and you know, it's probably puts undue stress on the buggy and wears things out faster. So we try to prioritize weight and simplicity, even though some of the stuff looks pretty complicated. The front rack, like I said, I've had some previous versions that didn't work as well. It's got a solid side here so that your pegs don't poke out, and then it's got expanded metal on the other side just to kind of try to lighten things up. We've got 3 dividers, most desirable post to least desirable. When I get down to this junk right here, I'm not a happy person, and so it's time to go try to pick up some fence somewhere else. The front rack is attached to this bar here on the windshield. It's kind of designed this way, on the roll cage. It's designed this way so that you can have the windshield on the buggy and still operate. You can just reach your hand around the windshield and get your post out, and it's no problem. This is the way that we hold our reels. This is not the best design, but it's sufficient. I'm going to change it to a different style one of these days. This whole thing's not painted. The reason why it's not painted is because I keep making changes. So if you ever see it painted, you'll know that I'm 100% happy with it and not 95% happy with it. Hopefully that day will come soon, because in this environment, it might rust out before I get it dialed in and get it how I want it. This is actually coated with bed liner. We built that. That's a overhead console. Very important, valuable things like our fence tester live there. The main reason why we did all of this stuff was because I am the world's worst at losing tools, and if everything doesn't have a place, it'll end up disappearing, or we'll just put it down and forget about it. So we've tried to create really good habits. This fence tester should be in your hand or in the overhead console, stuff like that. We've got a 12-volt radio hooked up here, just get some tunes sometimes when you need them. Got a hookup for the tumble buggy. That's our switch for the brakes to put out hay when we need to. I'm going to kind of zip through a lot of these things on this rack back here because it's a lot. But we tried to take every tool that we had that we used on a regular basis and find a place for it. And the goal was to be held tightly, to be easy to get to. And the reason why we want it held tightly is so this thing's not rattling around as much as we drive around on it. It's just annoying to have things rattling around. Starting out with the foot hook, we do tag calves, and the foot hook comes in handy sometimes if you need to catch a quick calf. It's got its home there. This is a bullnose machete, chop weeds away from the water point or little section of fence or something like that. It's got its home, and it's not too bad to get out, but the main thing was that it's secure and it doesn't rattle around and make a bunch of noise. And then we've got, if you saw this is the 3rd version of the rack, really. And my first version was pretty rough. I made a lot of changes to it. The second version had a place for 2 pairs of pliers. Then we found out about Knipex, and so we had to add on this 3rd version a more elaborate pliers holder to have places to put all these things. We've got some bullnose or button nose pliers, kind of Australian crescent style, 8-inch pair and then a 10-inch pair, our regular barbed wire fencing pliers, and then our Knipex up there. And then here's our hammer. We use a Gallagher 7/8 white coated post to make corners and ends for our poly, and we also have some fencing that uses those for permanent fencing. And so we use the hammer here. It's a little 3-pound sledge that we use to tap those in. Fence crimpers, crimp tool, I'm not going to take those out. They're wedged in there pretty tight so they won't dislodge, but anyway, they're here on the driver's side, pretty easy to get to. Things like our crimps and just little details we have in cubbies like this. This is a piece of 8-inch purlin that we built these little boxes and racks out of. This is a highly organized mess here. So you would think that with all this cool storage, we would do a little bit better job of keeping things straight, but you all know how that goes. So the 7/8 post go right here. I think we can fit up to 20 in it. Normally it just, you know, we've got 3 in there now. We might have some out in the pasture, but they're pretty easy to get out. The way that it's built, they stack together to where they don't bounce around either. It's almost 2 wide, 2 posts wide, that is. And then these are what we call our pop-ups. These are the things that we use to raise up the fence whenever we go under. They're between 4 and 5 foot long, depending on which ones are. And so they kind of fit nicely and don't stick out too far. We started building them a little taller. They weren't really supposed to stick out that far, but we started making them a little taller. Keep a sharpshooter shovel up here. Never know when you're gonna need it. Sometimes we just use it to clean feeders or to dig something up. And then here is our fence tension tool. It's got rubber on the handles and it's got a home there, and you can push it in. It's not going anywhere and it doesn't rattle around either. This is our post pounder with a spider on it. This is just a 1-inch piece of pipe that we use to drive in these white Gallagher posts to use for our temporary fencing. Our reel racks, I'll give you a little close-up of this. It's 2 pieces of rod offset from each other, so that what happens is you put the reel on and tuck it in like that, and the weight of the reel pretty much holds it in place, minimal bouncing or rattling, and you can slide them around. You can reach across and grab the one on the other side and drag it across, and you can move them from one end all the way to the other without an obstruction. I think I've had like 6 reels on the bottom and 6 reels on the top before, so you can kind of bunch them up, and that holds them pretty well. The bed is an absolute mess. These are 4-foot posts that we don't use very much, but we do use some, and I'm probably gonna subdivide this rack right here and put a little place to hold our 4-footers up there, just so they're not clogging up the bed. Then we've got a big toolbox here. This is different from the first version. I discontinued the stuff that we had over here and changed this out. This needs a good cleaning out, and it'll all be good. We usually keep it cleaner than this, and I kind of did this on the spur of the moment, but hey, we're authentic here. So up top, we've got a little cubby basket. We'll have plasins. I think these are all, no, that's a good one. We'll have some spare parts and stuff up there, and some different water connections that we might use, stuff that we don't use very frequently, but we might need. Try to keep this thing kind of stocked up with whatever supplies we need. We've got, tensioners, places for tensioners and things like that. Angle iron frame that this thing is attached to, and this is 1x2 square tubing. You can see the expanded metal here on the end. This is what all your posts bump up against, and then we've just got it set up to where you can kind of throw stuff in there and it slides down and it's not going to go anywhere. The only thing holding it on is weight, and then there's 2 tiny little 1/4-inch bolts on the back here. I drilled a hole through the bed. Our last buggy had a bed liner, so we didn't get some of that rattling. We need to do something about that. And the last buggy also had, if you saw that video, it had a 10-inch bed extension on it, which was fantastic. Gave us a little more room, but it was heavy and it caused some structural issues with the bed. So I have plans to put probably a 6 or 8-inch extension on this, but I just have not got around to it. I'm going to build it a lot lighter and make it a little handier than the last one. So in a nutshell, I think that's it. I'll show you a few close-ups and stuff of the way that we attach the front rack, and maybe just go around a little bit. You can take these 2 bolts out, swing the front rack forward, get in there and clean the radiator and do stuff like that. So anyway, it's a work in progress, but it works.